The Game of Thrones duo DB Weiss and David Benioff are working on an upcoming HP Lovecraft movie. That's the headline on today's MBE Movie News. And yes guys, this one is coming in from Empire Films, and it's pretty self-explanatory really. The ill-fated duo that is DB Weiss and David Benioff, of course, the writers, producers, showrunners, all-hearing, all-seeing, omnipotent beings that were involved on the wildly successful but finally impotent Game of Thrones TV show, and then obviously penned a deal to go to Star Wars and work under the tyrannical Kathleen Kennedy, and then subsequently left. They are now obviously appearing here, working with Warner Brothers on a new upcoming HP Lovecraft movie. Now, I'm going to admit right off the bat, I am not the biggest HP Lovecraft fan. In fact, I've never even read any of his books, and I may even be pronouncing his name wrong. I think it's Lovecraft, not Love. I don't know what crack I'm on. Yeah, I've never read any of this guy's books, but I'm obviously acutely aware of the brilliance of his writing. The guy seems to have his place in pop culture. You see characters like Cthulhu, I think it's called, this big squid, ominous squid creature. You see that popping up throughout the internet in memes in various different manners, and it just seems to he seems to have his place in pop culture. By all accounts, a wonderful writer, distinctly strange guy who had issues communicating with people, seemed to put all of his mind power into books, and apparently the books are incredible. He's crafted a real rich and lush mythos and world with an array of colourful, mysterious creatures in there, and I think that this is definitely a very good choice for Warner Brothers to bring on these two guys who have proven that they know how to craft the adaptations of great works. They have did it with George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, and look, the first 5 or 6 series of that show were truly epic. The way they managed to adapt various parts of the books into the TV show, they did make their own little alterations, and for the most part it was for the better. In a lot of cases for the worse, but for the most part I felt for the better. Having read the George R.R. Martin books, there was things in there which annoyed me, but look, I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and Peter Jackson made some very glaring omissions. The likes of Tom Bombadil and whatnot were not in the movies, so it's been done. You have to adapt and try and create your own story within the refines and the confines of the author's work, and I feel like these guys have proven they can do that. Now, this writer, I mean, as I did say, I don't know a huge amount, and as I did waffle on a bit about, he has an amazing imagination. He has crafted an incredible world full to the brim with these dark, mysterious creatures, and this is ripe for adaptations. Now, I'm not sure if there has been other movies. I've not dived into the guy's back catalogue and looked at different films that have perhaps been adapted, but with the might of Warner Brothers behind this duo, if they can get the right, and by all accounts they are already working on their Netflix projects. You'll have to bear with me here, I have a terribly blocked nose, a sinus infection, so I'm toiling a little bit here, but by all accounts they're working already on their Netflix, obviously developments, projects, whatever, which forced them to step away from Star Wars, if you believe certain sources. I don't. And they, as a result, have invited, brought in a team of workers, Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi, and they will also be joined by Karine Kusama, who will be an executive producer. They will be coming on board to work on this movie early on until this Netflix project is out the way. They have a clear schedule, then they can come in and put their creative brilliance onto this. Some would say they're shite creatively, I would disagree. As I did say, I'm excited for this because I feel like this is a rush, what I keep wanting to say rush, a rich and lush environment just there, ripe for the tapping. And we might even see a situation if they're a little bit scared or overburdened with the sheer amount of work that this guy's put out. We may even see a situation where they'll do a few movies, flesh out some of these big mysterious creatures, and then we could have like a Godzilla versus Lord knows what King Kong set up where we have different big creatures fighting off each other. I have seen people in the comment section of this who are bigger fans of Lovecraft, and I want to keep saying love, I don't know why, saying that wouldn't be the best idea. By all accounts, what draws them to this man's work is the mysteriousness in the story, that there's something evil and deep and forbidden in this world which you just feel you have to tap into, and then this opens up doors to these big creatures. So apparently, like all great writers, there's superficial stuff going on which attracts certain people in. In this case, for a movie, it would be the general public, the big bombastic action sequences with these big Cthulhu characters and whatnot. But then underneath that surface level stuff, we've got undercurrents of real meaty stuff going on in terms of stories and themes and whatnot being explored, which will attract the OG hardcore fans if it's done right. Now, these guys, there's obviously an aside to this, and that could be that these guys are deemed to be fairly toxic just now with their handling of this final season of Game of Thrones, the way they handled the ending, the manner in which they just seem to want to get rid of it so they could rush off and do Star Wars, and then they fell into a bit of a conflict with Kathleen Kennedy over at Disney Lucasfilm, subsequently split. Now they're away doing Netflix. There could be a degree of toxicity, if I can say it, around these guys' names. And then you also have that tag now where they're deemed to be slightly untrustworthy. Can they be trusted to remain loyal to a project long enough that they will do it right and they will do justice to this great man's works? Lord knows, time will tell. Warner Brothers have jumped on them, having a slightly freer schedule now, sans Star Wars, and by all accounts they are looking very much forward to working with these guys and adapting this great man's work. So look, I've not got much more to add in terms of the actual stories themselves, because as I did say, I don't know much about it. I have opened up an article. I'm not going to get bogged down with it because I am struggling a bit with the nose. As you'll hear, it's getting nasalier and nasalier and nasalier. It will sound like John Lennon very shortly. Well, that wouldn't be a negative. I should start singing perhaps No Replies pretty soon, and then I may get more subscribers for that if I can do it justice. But look guys, The Colour Out of Space, this is what they say in the article as well. We have big bombastic space sequences. We have a whole host of things going on in here. There's a real ripe sort of a palette here where we can get torn right into some really good stories. I'm excited to see where it goes, to see whether these guys can indeed stay faithful to one project for any given time, whether they can do justice to this man's works. And if they can, I am a guy who has traditionally been attracted to stories and great authors through their adaptations of the actual work in movies. I didn't read The Lord of the Rings prior to Peter Jackson's trilogy in the early 2000s. I became so consumed with that and in love with it that I ended up becoming an immensely big fan of J.R.R. Tolkien and his works. I've read the works 3, 4, 5 times now, and it's the same with obviously J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. Watched the movies, became really obsessed, read the books. It was the same with Game of Thrones. So there's a bit of a trend going on here, and if they can do it right and get me consumed in this world, then it will subsequently allow me to go in and really enjoy the books as well. So I hope they get it right. Essentially, that's what I'm saying, without gibbering off nonsensically forever and ever. And on that note, guys, I'm going to move on to the second topic on today's show, and it is coming in from Screen Rant, and it's all about Lion King and Disney not submitting it as an animated movie for the Golden Globes. Now, they go on to say that Disney did not submit 2019's The Lion King as an animated film for the Golden Globes consideration, leaving the HFPA to make the distinction themselves. They have now subsequently submitted the movie as an animated picture. Now, they say this has ramifications because they have been following this sort of a strategy throughout all of the consideration period for the obviously all the award ceremonies, which means that this movie will not now be considered for an Oscar in the animated category. Now, it's not a good enough movie to be nominated on its own right for Best Picture. So I suppose what I'm going to get into here is this doing a real disservice, and is this an injustice to the great studio who have put this together, a studio which has now disbanded and went off to pastures new, a studio which was a subsidiary company of the Vancouver branch moving picture company. They worked on The Life of Pi, which was an incredible movie as well, obviously surrounding this young guy being stuck on a boat with a tiger, and just the level of authenticity they brought to that movie as well. It looked like a real living, breathing tiger. It was a wonderfully nuanced story. I really enjoyed the movie. And I actually really enjoyed The Lion King this year as well. I actually thought it was a pretty good remake of the original movie, and yeah, I mean, is this a shame? Is this an injustice for the studio? I feel like this is the primary thing that I've taken out of this article. I feel this is doing a real disservice to the studio by not granting them the recognition that they would probably get in the animated section of the Golden Globes, of the Oscars, of perhaps the Emmys, perhaps. Well, not the Emmys, that's a TV-centric thing, but the BAFTAs and whatnot. I feel that this is a real shame, and it just stems back to that controversy that seemed to surround this movie before its release, where people were suggesting that it wasn't live action, that it was animated, and there seemed to be a bit of strife between Disney critics and the fan base. Disney were absolutely determined to classify this movie as a live action, despite the fact there is not a single live action character in the movie. It's all handcrafted animated animals, and that seemed to cause strife, and this seems to be continuing into the award season, and it's doing a real damage to these people who have worked incredibly hard to make this movie happen. And look, this movie got a split response from critics and fans. It was quite divisive. Some thought it was a pile of shit, it was hollow, it was soulless, but even those people would have to admit in their hearts of hearts, even if they hate Disney and to their very core, that the movie was incredibly rich in its crafting and its visual element, the cinematography. It was wonderful the way they realised these animals. And this is Jon Favreau. He did it with The Jungle Book. It still blows my mind that The Jungle Book was a solely animated green screen movie, with the only real character being obviously Mowgli. It blows my mind. The movie was so authentic looking. It looked like he was in a jungle. So Favreau has previous for this, creating these great stories. I believe The Jungle Book may have got an Oscar for Best Animated. I'd have to research that. I should have did that before I came on. I'm not painting myself in a good light here at all. But yeah, I feel like this is doing a disservice to a wonderful picture in terms of the technical side of things. It was incredible, the craftsmanship. I've said time and again, as a Star Wars fan, I've loved what ILM have did over the years. I love the technical work that goes into creating these big blockbuster movies, in terms of visuals, in terms of creative little tricks they do with practical effects blending into CGI. We see it with the Corridor Crew on YouTube, a wonderful YouTube channel. They go into the intricacies of visual effects and how these incredibly, insanely talented people make these movies work. And I just feel, without waffling off repeatedly, it's doing it a real disservice. I think the movie deserves to be recognised for the technical aspect, and it should have been classified as an animated movie. I'm glad to see the Golden Globes have classified it themselves as an animated movie, and it will perhaps win. Now, off the top of my head, I'm struggling to think of other animated movies this year out with Toy Story 4, which would give it a real run for its money and perhaps win. But I think on a technical mastery, I do feel The Lion King is better than Toy Story 4. Pixar did a wonderful job. They have slowly, incrementally updated the graphics to such an extent that when you go back and look at the original, you're like, Jesus, I didn't think it had changed that much, but it really has changed drastically since the 1990s, 95, which you should expect. All things change over time and get better. But even still, The Lion King is like here for me, and Toy Story's here. There's just no comparison between those two movies in terms of the visuals. So I feel that's a shame. I don't know what Disney are doing. You would think they would want to shine some limelight onto the people behind the scenes. Even if Jon Favreau isn't going to be nominated for Best Director, even if the movie isn't going to be nominated for Best Picture, try and grab as many awards as possible. Because look, they're shunning the comic book movies, so I don't expect Endgame to pick up any awards outside of the technical categories, or maybe even written, because, well, no, they'll not pick up, no chance. I take that back immediately. So yeah, it's a shame, a real shame, and yeah, I'm not got much more to add. Probably about 12 minutes in here, 17 minutes in I should say. Need to get my glasses back on. So I'm going to move on, because I've got a box office chat to do, or a box office breakdown, you know. Starting to go to my brain, this sinus infection. But yeah, guys, the next topic anyway is all about Shazam 2, and it being announced that it's coming out in 2022. Now, I actually discussed the release of, I want to say it was Black Adam. No, it wasn't Black Adam, it was The Flash. And there was another one, it was The Matrix 4, coming out the same time as, obviously, John Wick Chapter 4. And how it's a really busy period for these, obviously DC first and foremost, and now we have Shazam being announced as well a couple of days later, and this may be representative of how barren the actual news slates are just now for ordinary movies that I'm also been having to resort to discussing topics which are perhaps 3-4 days out of date. But look, bear with me, I have to speak about something. What do I make of this? I think this is very interesting, and I think when you look, again, I spoke about this last week as well, as DC got a more exciting future slate than Marvel, and look, when you just slide this movie in with all of the other different DC movies which are set to come out over the next 2-3 years, it's incredible what they have got at their disposal here. It really is. I have an article opened up which outlines every single one, and we do have Birds of Prey, or The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, hits coming out 2020, on my birthday incidentally, February 7th. That's a great little birthday present for me, coming up not long away at all now. Then we have Wonder Woman 1984, which looks wonderful. Chris Pine, Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins hitting the ball out of the park. We have the great Pedro Pascal in there as well. I wasn't aware of it until I watched the trailer. Then we have the Batman, obviously the Matt Reeves Batman. We have James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, slight reboot. We have Aquaman 2, Jason Momoa getting back into his suit again, with James Wan involved at some point, I'm pretty sure. We have the untitled Black Adam movie, which I spoke about previously. It's coming out on roughly, I want to say, probably 2022, 2023, maybe 2023. We have The Trench, and then we have The Flash in there, which I spoke about last week. And then we have Shazam 2, all coming out in the next 2 or 3 years, and it is remarkable. All these different nuanced stories are doing, different characters, different genres within the comic book movie genre, obviously. We have The Trench as well, which is going to be a horror movie being helmed by, I want to say, James Wan, doing a horror comic book movie, perhaps just after Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And you've got The Flash going darker, you've got Shazam 2. Are they going to maintain the same tone that we've seen in the original Shazam? This colourful, upbeat, humorous tone? Or will he be slightly older now, the younger guy whose name eludes me at the moment? Will they go for a slightly different, more serious movie? Because by all accounts, Shazam, when he is fully mature, is second only to Superman in terms of his raw ability. So it's going to be very interesting to see how DC balance all of the various genres, how they balance the tonality of it. Will they go down the darker R-rated route, or will they just keep it mixed up? Because I don't feel like R-rated would jive with a Wonder Woman movie, or with an Aquaman movie, where you have Jason Momoa shouting, "My man," every 2 minutes, with also Amber Heard's character, Mira. It's going to be intriguing to see what they do, but I'm very excited to see that Shazam 2 has been announced. There was some issues there. Would it get a sequel? With the slightly, I mean, it did okay. It was a success for what it was. It was an experimental movie DC released. Some thought it may flop. It didn't flop. It done okay, but there was little voices of dissent in the background suggesting it may not get a sequel. So I'm glad to see, I digress, that it is getting a sequel and that it is coming out on 2022, and hopefully we'll see further development of this character. Will they continue with this whole DCEU thing? Obviously we had it was a Henry Cavill body double in the cutscene, end screen credit scene or whatever. Lord knows, time will tell with that. I'm seeing flashing in this light incidentally. This show may end prematurely. It may blow any second now. I'm getting concerned about it. And on that note, I will move on to the box office part of the show, if I can finish it, because that is really annoying me, that flickering. We're roughly about 22 minutes in. This is going to be very quick indeed. And this is, of course, for the weekend of December 6th to 8th, 2019. Coming in at number 1 this week is Frozen 2. Jesus Christ, that light is just doing my nutting. And it's grossed another $5.7 million over the weekend. I'm not even attempting to do pounds this week, taking its total grossing at the United Kingdom to $43.5 million. This is, of course, the sequel to the hugely successful Frozen. It's doing very well. It's dropped another 48.6% this weekend. It's its third weekend. Massively successful movie. I haven't yet had the chance to pop along and see it, but by all accounts, pretty decent sequel. Slightly less magical, but more mature, and they're doing some neat things with it in terms of music and whatnot. So yeah, hats off to them. In terms of worldwide performance, we have it currently sitting over $1 billion. That is the 6th movie Disney has released this year which has crossed the $1 billion mark. Will The Rise of Skywalker make it 7? Yes, it will. Even if it is shit, it will make it 7. But look, guys, moving on to number 2, we have Knives Out, the Lionsgate release. Obviously, Rian Johnson's foray into the whodunit genre with Chris Evans and Daniel Craig and Michael Shannon and Toni Collette, and the list is goddamn endless really. It has grossed another $2.1 million this weekend, taking its total grossing in the United Kingdom to a very decent $7.8 million after 2 weeks. It's dropped 44.2% on its second weekend, which is par for the course really. It's still gaining theatres, so it is in no rush to go out of the theatrical release yet. There's no rush to leave the box office. It will go toe-to-toe with Star Wars next week, and it will lose badly, which is poetic in a sense because Rian Johnson's involved. Worldwide though, $162.2 million. That is very, very good for a whodunit. It continues this renaissance for the genre, and I'm glad to see it because I'm a big fan, advocate of the genre, and I really enjoyed the movie. And on that note, I will move on to number 3, which is Last Christmas, another Universal release. We have a few in there this week. It has grossed another $1.7 million over the weekend, dropped 18.3% on its fourth weekend, taking its total grossing now in the UK to $16.8 million. It's up 37 theatres. It's in the midst of the Christmas period. People are getting into the festive spirit. They're going along to watch this upbeat rom-com movie with Emma Thompson. Obviously, we've got Amelia Clarke in there and Henry Golding. I've not seen it yet. I need to go and watch it. I really do. I like Christmas movies. I have to get into the Christmas spirit. And I'm a big fan of Amelia Clarke and Henry Golding. And I like Emma Thompson too. I went to see... God, what was that one called? Judge? The Family Judge? Something like that. Can't recall the name. Very, very good movie though. Amazing actress. Its total grossing over $100 million. Well bloody done to all involved. It fully deserves it by all accounts. A decent little movie with some great performances. But look, number 4, we have Les Misérables, the staged concert. I always have issues with that, incidentally. That goddamn accent above the E throws me off. I want to say Les Misérables or something like that. But no, it's Les Misérables, I do believe. It's grossed another 1.2. It's grossed? No, yeah, another 1.2. Sorry, second weekend. Wasn't in the top 10 last week. Taking its total grossing to $4.2 million in the United Kingdom. Has it got a wide release? Well, yes, it has. It's grossed $4.9 million worldwide. That is a not too shabby performance at all. For a musical movie, I'm looking over at the time there to make sure I'm still within my allotted time for the cameras. And look, I've not seen it. I have no real interest in going to see it. And I'm going to move on to a story or a movie which I have got no interest in seeing either. It is The Blue Story. It's down one place. It's grossed another $500,000 this weekend. It's dropped 54.8% in its third weekend. Its total gross is now $4.9 million. I do not believe this movie has a widespread release out of the shores of the United Kingdom because it is a British-centric rap gang movie which was causing great consternation. There was many gangs running around Birmingham View cinemas with machetes trying to chop up little kids coming out of Frozen 2, so they get it thrown out of View cinemas, but it hasn't hampered the box office success of this movie. It's doing very well, and hats off to it. So on that note, I'm going to move on to a movie which I did see, Ford v Ferrari, number 6. It's maintained its position. It has dropped another 61.8% over the weekend, and it grossed another $242,000. Its total grossing now just over $7 million. 4 weeks in, very impressive performance, $184.6 million worldwide. Fantastic movie. Matt Damon, Christian Bale, wonderful. James Mangold, an incredible director. I really do pine away for that Boba Fett movie, which will never be, that he was getting ready to helm before Kathleen Kennedy decided to axe, along with Bob Iger, all the standalone movies after obviously Solo flopped. Completely misread the market and the Star Wars fandom once again. It was a travesty, but look, he gave us Ford v Ferrari. It was a wonderful biopic about these two great friends getting together, making magic happen, and propelling Ford over Ferrari in the Le Mans race in 1966. And on that note, I'm going to move on, because I'm running out of time here, very, very much so, to number 7, and it's a classic. It's Gremlins. It's a 4K restoration. I didn't know this existed. It's come in at $213,000 over its first weekend. Its total gross is, of course, $213,000. Now, if I was aware that this movie was back out in the cinemas, Jesus H. Christ, I would have been out to watch that movie. That was a real staple of my childhood. I loved Gremlins. I loved Little Gizmo. Wonderful movie. A great Christmas movie, of course. A lot of people like to talk about the great Christmas movies. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie? Home Alone? Is Gremlins? Well, yes it is. And Warner Brothers have released a special little festive restoration project. And if it is out in Glasgow, you best believe I will be there watching that movie. Love it. And I'm delighted to see it's earning more money. But look guys, I am going to move onwards because I am seriously running out of time to number 8, and it is Motherless Brooklyn. This is another Warner Brothers release, the second in the top 10. There's actually a third just outside the top 10, Friends 25th anniversary, but that's not in the top 10. I'm not discussing it. And this one is grossed $202,000 in its first weekend, of course, taking its total grossing to $202,000. Who would have thought it? Now, I want to say this is the Edward Norton movie about Brooklyn. I'm not sure if it is. It may not be, but I want to say it is the Ed Norton movie. If I'm wrong and you're watching this, correct me down below. I'm probably talking shite. If it is the Ed Norton one, it's apparently a car crash, absolute dog shit, and he's called in a favour of so many different actors, like Alec Baldwin I think's in there and whatnot. It's a trash fire of a movie, apparently, dumpster fire, whatever. It's worldwide grossing $15.1 million, so yeah, it's doing okay. Not got much more to say to it. I'm not going to go and watch it, to be quite frank, and I'm moving on swiftly to number 9, which is Elf, which is of course the Will Ferrell Elf. Is that the Will Ferrell Elf? What is going on here? What is going on here? Why are we getting so many re-releases? It's in its 837th week at the box office. This thing is like The Killers. It never drops out. It just keeps chugging along for all eternity. It's grossed $195,000 in its first foray back into the top 10, and its total grossing is $195,000. Is this the Will Ferrell movie? I have no idea. And on that note, I'm moving on because I don't even care. To number 10, which is Charlie's Angels. It is 2 weeks out. It's grossed another $189,000. Its total gross is just $1.222 million. Yes, $1.2 million. Second weekend, 71.7% drop. It's a tragedy for Sony. It's a tragedy for everyone involved with this shit movie. The likes of Naomi Scott, Kristen Stewart. I always forget that goddamn director's name. Completely irrelevant to me. This movie, by all accounts, isn't that terrible. It's just been mismarketed. And there's been some shit did with the action sequences. It's a little Captain America 1990s where we have death by 20,000 cuts to make one moving action sequence. $55.8 million worldwide. It had a $48 million budget. Wow. This movie had a promotional push. That is the biggest flippity-floppity flop I have seen in a very long time. That is an absolute tragedy for this movie. And I think it will end all talks of a rejuvenation for the Charlie's Angels franchise. It was a franchise no one ever wanted, let's be honest. The early 2000s movies with Cameron Diaz, I always want to say Charlize Theron, were shit. They had a better cast, I would say, pound for pound than this. Never going to work. And on that note, I'm moving on to the end of the box office and indeed MBE movie news for today. What did you guys make about the headline I spoke about DB Weiss and David Benioff perhaps coming on to adapt a HP Lovecraft movie? Lovecraft, what the what's your thoughts on it? Is this something you're excited for? Is this something that could work? Do you think there is enough scope in these stories? That's a stupid question. And can these guys do it justice? Do you trust them after their cheating ways where they bailed on Game of Thrones and they bailed on Star Wars? What do you make of The Lion King not being nominated in the animated category by Disney? Are they shitting on that great studio? And what's your thoughts about Shazam 2 as well? If you've got anything to say in general, you can comment below and you can let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. That is what it's there for. You can also like the video if you've stuck around and you've enjoyed it. And I feel like I deserve a like after going through a sinus infection, and try to speak and keep my spirits upbeat. And you can also subscribe to the channel as well while you're at it if you've enjoyed it. And if you do, then you will see me tomorrow with Stephen for MBE Heroes.